Welcome to the My House Podcast, a show about the past, present, and future goings-on at the My House Youth Drop-In Center in Wasilla, Alaska, with your host, Michelle Overstreet.
Hi, welcome to episode 12 of the My House Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Overstreet, and today I'm joined by Jay Dagenhart. And Jay, thank you for being here. When Jay and I met in 2009 or 10? 11. In 2011, Jay was the pastor for On Mission Church and came to Burchell High School and was excited about what we were doing with My House. So thank you, Jay, for all these years of being involved with us and part of our founding board and just walking with us through lots and lots of growth. So we're going to be talking about that today. Lots of exciting things. Isaac, can I toss it over to you for some housekeeping?
Yes. First piece of housekeeping is Michelle's back. We are through the dark times of everyone being out of the office for weeks and weeks on a time. So I'm excited that things are going to get back to normal a little bit. The last episode of the My House Podcast was just me and Michael Carson talking, but I think it was a really good conversation. The Opioid Task Force just knocking it out of the park recently. So for more information on what they're doing, go back and take a listen to that. I guess I can use that cue to mention that the 31st of August is International Overdose Awareness Day. The Opioid Task Force is putting on an event at Nunley Park right here across from the My House building, behind us and to, I guess, the right based on my current orientation. But yeah, if you're facing going north on Wasilla Fishhook, it's to the right. So come out and hang with us for that. That'll be a cool all-day event. We also have the golf tournament going on the 22nd of July. We're just about full on everything. Maybe one more sponsorship left. I think last I heard, like 4 teams, enough for like 16 more people to jump in if they still wanted to. We're still taking applications for that, but this might be the last week that's an option. So if you're interested in that and you still haven't done anything and you've listened to all these episodes, I mean, I don't really know what you're doing, but you probably should do something about it quickly because you're running out of time. Diagnonsense just released a more fun episode. We're talking about some movie and TV show stuff again, which I'm excited for. It's been a little minute since we've done that. Redemption, we just had 2-part episode with Linda Chudd. She had been on the My House podcast before, kind of talking about what she does here, and she talks a little bit about that, but it's also just mostly her life journey. And I can't remember who I was talking to. Linda's just one of those people where you walk into a room and she just exudes like positive feelings, positive vibes.
Yeah, she's radiant.
And listening to her talk in those 2 episodes was just so awesome. Even if she did go to college in Missoula, boo, go MSU. So My Voice also just released a super long episode, not super long, about 50 minutes. It is longer, but man, I just thought super
Incredible
powerful.
Story.
A lot of hurt in there, but a lot of hope as well. And just the healing journey that guest went on, just incredible. So be looking out for all of that. We're actually, me and Michelle, or Michelle and I should say, are going to DC here in just a couple of weeks. And I'm really hoping that we can maybe get some special guests out of that trip. Obviously, we already had Senator Murkowski on, but there's lots of people we can talk to while we're down there. So be on the lookout for that stuff. We might have a slight schedule change while we kind of juggle everything around since, again, we're going to be out of the office. It's summertime. Who can blame us? We're going to be out of the office. Sue me. So just be on the lookout for all those and those updates on Facebook. And, we'll let you know what's going on. We'll keep you informed. I think that's everything I have.
Awesome. Thanks, Isaac. Jay, thank you for being on the My House podcast.
My pleasure.
This is a weird story to tell, but Jay will remember this. The day that Jay came into Burchell High School, that morning, I got up and said to my husband, God, I'm so tired this morning. I had this dream going on, and all night I was like in this in this place with this Dagenhart. It was like my whole mind was filled with Dagenhart. And he was like, well, isn't that an old movie or something? And I was like, yeah, I think so. But I don't know. I don't even have a frame of reference for it. It was just weird. And I got to school that day, and just a couple of hours later, here came Jay and his wife, and they introduced themselves, and he said, I'm Jay Dagenhart. And I was like, oh, man, this like knocking on the inside of my skull all night. It was like, these are my people right here.
I thought you were going to talk about the giant dragon tattoo that Jay has across his back. That's pretty
Not exactly. But, that's a funny story, because when we moved up here in 2011, a friend of mine from our church in Virginia, she messaged me and said, hey, I've got a cousin who lives in Wasilla, and she's starting with this group who wants to work with homeless youth, and you ought to give her a call. And so Deb Wiseman, I gave her a call, and she said, hey, you got to meet this lady, Michelle Overstreet. She works at Burchell High School. So my wife and I come over there, and I joke with everybody now, 10, 11 years later, that you had me at hello. Because as my wife and I met with you, you just began to sob, your desire to help youth. And you said, I can't see another kid sleeping in a car at 20 below.
Right.
And just handing out sleeping bags is not enough. And so, when I give tours or whatever, I always say, she had me when she said hello. And my wife and I both said, we're in. We didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
But we were in.
Right.
It's always one of Michelle's cousins, isn't it? Cousins
Yes.
or sisters or relatives. Man.
Well, yeah, but it was actually a friend of mine's cousin who knew.
Yeah, it wasn't my
Deb-
cousin for
Oh,
Deb
okay,
Wiseman,
okay.
yeah.
I
Who was
only
a-
say that because Michelle's sister was my supervisor. I was her TA in high school, and she was also the manager of our hockey team. So I also know plenty, and I played with and against Michelle's nephews. So yeah, her family gets around.
It's a big group. It's a big group. I've been happy. There's been lots of times when we've had things going on here, and I say, "Let me call my cousin."
You always got a cousin or an uncle
Somebody
hook
over
us
here
up.
to fix something.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the most fun things for me, Jay, is that you've been with us through tremendous, tremendous growth, and even opening the drop-in center here in 2013. You were sitting at that table with some of our board members, and certainly some of the local coalition members who said this will never work.
Yeah.
This is you're irresponsible for taking donations, and what do you remember about that time?
I just remember people, even on our board, were kind of saying, we can't do this. It's bigger than what we are capable of doing, especially this building, And I remember when the first time I came in the building, I was just in awe, because we were in like this little 2-room place, just having meetings and visionary about what are we going to do. And we were handing out food and sleeping bags and those kind of things. And for you to have this vision that nobody else had, I just kudos to you, because even me, I have sort of a business background and working with churches. I went, we don't have any money. How are we going to do this? But we believed in you. And so as a board, we said, I don't know how this is going to, me personally said, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm in, 100%. So it was just really cool to see people say, you won't last a year. And here we are.
Right.
And doing better than we ever have.
Right.
Yeah.
I was filling out a grant form yesterday afternoon that of course was on a deadline, and so I was frantically filling out this finance form for this grant, and looking at the budget, and I cried. It was like, oh my gosh. We had so many years where we were close to the margin all the time, just trying to figure out how to keep the doors open and do all the things for kids that we wanted to do. And I remember, somebody needed shoes one time, and it was like, well, do we have enough money to buy them shoes? And we don't have that worry anymore. Our community really rallied around us, and we really built this organization with $90,000 in donated labor and materials to get the cafe up and running in a case management area, and the donations from churches and individuals and groups and businesses that have been so generous really sustained us, and they still do. That's really critical.
Yeah, it's just been an encouragement to see, when there's a vision And just the community has rallied around us all these years. Even the naysayers now, I think, are sayers. You know, they're going, all right, they're going to make it. They're some of those naysayers are now in meetings. In fact, I was in a meeting last week, and they were praising what we were doing.
Nice.
So it's really cool to see that come full circle.
Nice. I've had it just in the last couple of months, a lot of comments on, boy, you just don't see homeless kids wandering around in the valley. They're either you're going to get them, they're taken care of, or something. They're just not loitering. They're not creating problems.
No, definitely. I have a hard time finding kids now. When I ride it, I have to go further out. I have to spend more time trying to find camps and things like that are in our age range. So it's a testament to what we've done here.
Right.
Definitely.
So talk a little bit about Jay. Jay was on our board, and then he resigned from our board to be our outreach coordinator in the early days when there were lots of kids out that didn't know about us.
Sure. Yeah. In the early days, it was not a problem to go to cars, you know, and that's when they had the fireplace there and kids were in there all hours of the night. I could go in there at 9 o'clock at night and see 10 kids kind of huddled around trying to stay warm. And you just don't see that now. You really don't. So, yeah, when the board approached me as I was on the board about coming on as our first full-time employee, I was a little hesitant at first because I was like, we don't have the money to pay me, you know, and I knew that, you know, and so that was a step of faith for us and for me. And I just remember, you know, my first desk being in what's now a part of our boutique, and it was just back in the dark, and I had a desk, and it was dirty and everything else.
Oh, yeah, it was a warehouse.
It was a warehouse.
It was a warehouse.
I really needed a desk because I wasn't here. But to see where it is now is just amazing.
You're really making me appreciate my desk right now.
Oh, no, you don't know how you got it made.
Right.
You know, when we came on, there was just a few of us. It was all, you volunteered, I don't even know how many years.
2.5, almost 3 years.
Yeah. So I was getting paid and you were, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. You're the visionary, you're the director, and here I was getting paid. But we all had to do everything, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, you know, changing the light bulbs and fixing the toilets and all the cars. And Michelle is notoriously hard on computers. And so about once a month, I had to either get her another computer or fix her computer for lightning strikes and all kinds of crazy stuff.
I am the motherboard fryer.
Yeah. So we didn't know any different. That's all
No.
we knew. You know, if something broke, we fixed it because we didn't have money to just pay somebody. We were lucky to have people in the community that would volunteer.
Right.
So
Right.
A lot of what you see when I give tours, I specifically point to the floor. You know, that floor was donated and the labor was donated, and there's a house. Our logo is in the cafe. And it just reminds me of where we came from.
Yeah.
And I think those of us that have been here through the whole thing, we don't forget that. Even though we're light years ahead of where we were, we can still look back to those years where it was hard, it was difficult, and we just saw, you know, God's hand of provision on this place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There was in 2015 we formed the Matsu Opioid Task Force, and we could see the freight train coming with the heroin epidemic. And then in 2016, we lost 11 kids.
I think it was 11, yeah.
Almost one a month. And that was so hard. And we really had to just really hold on to each other and believe that we were making a difference, that we could make a difference, and that we would help kids get safe. At that time, we had, I think, 220 clients. Now we have coming up on 500, I think 488 the last time.
I think so. I think it's almost 500.
Yeah. And that doesn't count all the kids that have aged out. I think we're over 850 for kids that have aged out for total number.
Sure. And just the kids that have come in to eat over the years, you know,
Right.
for supper club. I guarantee you we're in that 12 to 1,500 range easily.
Mm-hmm. There have been lots and lots of kids touched, and And I had a message yesterday from a girl that had been clean and sober for a while and had a little relapse, and she messaged me and said, you know, I'm struggling with my addiction, but I'm getting back on track, and I'm just letting you know because you're at my house. People have always been part of my support team. And I had a visitor here a few weeks ago, and we were chatting by the front door, and one of the young women came in that was really battling an addiction. And I said, "Are you staying sober?" And she said, "No, I relapsed, but I went to True North, and I'm getting into treatment now. I'm going into residential." And I just hugged her and said, "I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for that." And she went out the door, and the guy said that I was standing there talking to said, "I love that. You just spoke to her about treatment, and there was no shame. There was no shame on her. You weren't convicting her of anything. It was just like you were talking about, are you having coffee today?" And I said, you know, we've had a long time to practice that. Yeah. We've really had to anchor ourselves in that recovery community. And I think those early days were so predictive of what we were going to be dealing with. We just didn't know.
We didn't, and we had to invest so much time and energy in a lot of those early clients because we didn't have case managers really.
Right.
We were just all kind of filling in and loving, trying to keep some of these kids just alive.
Yeah.
It was that hard of work where every day we were like, hey, they made it through today.
Yeah.
You know, and because we didn't have the treatment centers. We didn't have all this stuff. We didn't have detox. We didn't have anything like that. And so it was a lot of work by a lot of people early on that just gave time and energy to see this happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had little trifold AANA meeting lists.
Yeah.
That was the solution.
Yeah.
And so
it was what was Michael saying, you know, what's something about how'd you got in the door? I can't remember his saying.
Yeah, meeting makers make it, and
it was something about somebody got you in the door, but we're going to keep you inside.
He does have a moniker or a kind of a slogan. But yeah, Michael was here doing all kinds of recovery stuff. And I think now we do have a lot of kids that come back through and stop in and tell us how they're doing. And we had a drain cleaning company that we had to call because the cafe drains they get plugged in there because they dump bacon grease and coffee grounds both down the drain, and it's like concrete. And so we have to call the drain cleaners to come and clean them out. And the kid that came with the big drain cleaning truck had been a client here, and he was so excited. He went around and hugged everyone in the building and talked about what he was doing and how he was doing. And I just think that happens so often. That those clients are out doing good things, and we see them working. We see them doing. I was talking to somebody a few days ago, and they were talking about a young man that we have that works at Evangelos, and I automatically thought that he was in the food prep area, and she said, "Oh no, he did the administrative assistant class over at Northern Industrial Training. He's the administrative assistant to the manager of the restaurant." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!
Yeah,
how wonderful!" So more and more, I think we're seeing our clients. When we started, we were sending them out of here with a food card and some barista skills. Now we're seeing them in positions that are really sustainable and that they can have a good life with.
And I think for me, the greatest thing, looking back, to 2011, 12, 13, those beginning years, where we were just trying to keep them alive every day. And now you see some of them are married. Yeah. They got kids, they're working at the banks, they're doing these things, and you just kind of smile inside and you go, this is bigger than any of us.
Right.
We didn't envision it. I don't think any of us, especially, I can't speak for you, but I don't think anybody, if you had said, look 10 years down the road, that we would have envisioned where we are today. Because we couldn't see that. All we could see was we got to keep these kids alive.
Oh, man.
And to see the impact that my house has had on this community is just, it's big. It's bigger than any of us.
Yeah, it's really fun. One of the things that I think we as a founding board can be really proud of is just the number of people that have been engaged in helping. You have brought mission teams here from all over the country every summer that some of them come back and say, this is my favorite place to do service work, or this is my favorite place to visit for a mission trip. And I just think it's so neat to have people, even from outside our community, come and volunteer and get to know some of the youth we serve and really understand the spirit.
Yeah, and just to kind of, sometimes I think about it when I'm just sitting around, just the magnitude. I mean, if you think about the people that have walked through that door, and to see the platform, we had legislation signed here, by the governor, and we've had at least 3 governors that I know of have been here.
Yep.
Senators, House of Representatives, all assembly members, local council members.
Mm-hmm.
It's really big to just kind of look back and see how that many people have gotten to see the vision of what we are. And it really is a thing that you have to see. You can go to meetings. You can tell people all the time, but it's just different. You know this, when they come in the door and you give them the tour, and at the end they go, I had no idea.
Yeah,
I just
every
had
time.
no idea.
Every time.
Yeah.
You're right. That's seeing it in person.
Yeah.
And I believe that some of that is because our building is filled with our clients.
Yeah.
They work in the cafe and the boutique, but they're also in the back some of them are going to school. We just had a young man graduate high school who came here with a 3rd grade level education.
Yep.
Not quite a year ago. Or a year and a half ago?
A little over a year.
Over a year ago. A 3rd grade education. And he lived in our housing and worked, and he graduated high school a couple weeks ago. And so people come in and they see kids that are doing school. They're finishing high school. They're on the computers looking for jobs. They're working with the case manager, just talking through something that's challenging. They've got a 9-star representative there who's giving them advice on how to write a good resume or a cover letter or whatever it is. And I think that's really where people get it. They see the youth here. And I also think that really busts through some of that stigma, because I really think that people have stigma around homeless kids.
And even for me, my house was the first experience I had working with kind of the least of these, if you want to say,
right.
In ministry terms. And it was eye-opening for me to see these kids as people. They weren't statistics. They weren't vagrants. They weren't just, homeless people. These were kids with stories. And when you sit down and they tell you how they were brought up and their circumstances that got them to where they are, it was just heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. But it was also encouraging, because some of these kids have seen and done things that are just inhumane, and most of it they're not their doing,
right? Just
the way they were raised or their upbringing, and to see that they're overcomers. It was just amazing to see how their attitudes weren't woe is me.
Right.
They were like, hey, I've been given an opportunity and I'm going to make the most of it.
Right. The resilience.
Yeah.
That
super
resilience
resilient
piece. I think that's one of the things I love about The Voice, the podcast, My Voice, because hearing those stories really reminds me. It reminds me of the early days, because they were coming here and there was nowhere else to go. There was no one doing what we were doing. And I can remember kids coming in and looking around and just going, wow. They'll come in the door and say, I heard that you were helping homeless kids here.
Yeah.
And what is that? What is that? What do you do? And so I'm really proud of that. Public Health has been with us offering birth control. And I remember there was a girl who saw the sign for Public Health above the door, and she said, what do they do? And I said, well, they do everything from head lice to trench foot, but most of what they do is birth control, pregnancy testing, and STD testing. And so if you need any of that, that's right there. And I remember she was like, wow, you mean you have somebody who can do a doctor thing? And I was like, yeah, we do. And so for kids that have not had medical care, for most of their life, ironically, when we moved into this building, the biggest pushback we got was from a doctor that owned the building across the street and that said that we were going to ruin the neighborhood. It was a really big not in my backyard thing. And I'm so thankful we're next door to the Valley Funeral Home. Yeah. And they never they've always been supportive. I mean, we've had some crazy experiences with them where we had a car stolen in the parking lot and we were looking at their video to see if we could see who did it. And they just have walked right along with us, haven't judged. They've been wonderful. And City Hall on the other side, we've had mayors and city council members that were just supportive and saying, look, this we can pay $11.06 a day for my house to provide services in their little building down the street, or we can not support that and pay $475 a day over at the Juvenile Justice Center. Yeah. What do you think is better for our community? And I love that's the attitude.
I remember when you were first telling us where this building was. I didn't know about Husky Electric or wherever. And we were new to the community. And I remember coming here and it's sort of down in this little hole and going, why would we pick this place? And you said, look outside. And I think we looked outside and there were some homeless kids walking up the street. And Herning was an actual, like a thoroughfare for homeless kids at that time. Yeah. And they had to walk right by our building. And I went, oh, she's smarter than the rest of us. Here I am thinking this is a terrible location, and it was right where we needed to be.
Yeah, when the city manager at the time said, where would you like a building? If you could pick anywhere, I said between Cars and Wonderland Park. Yeah. And not on the parks because kids don't walk down the parks. Right. And he bird dogged this building for us, and it was a terrific just a terrific find. And we're now having conversations. We just got, for those who haven't heard, we got a $23 million appropriation from the federal government to build a big commercial building that will be filled with 64 different beds of housing and additional job training opportunities for our clients. And specifically designed for that. It's going to be phenomenal. And one of the things that I was talking with the group of kids at Supper Club about was, do you want to keep this building? What do you want to have this building stay the way it is, or do we want to move some services over there? And they all said, no way, this is our place. I said, well, what do you like about it? And they said, we're kind of down here, it's like we're kind of, hidden, even though we're not. It's kind of, it feels like we're sheltered, and we want to keep all of the stuff right here. And I just thought that was such a nice statement about what you just said. It's protective, it's reassuring. They're confident about their place and how they fit in. And that really pleases me. That tells me that we've done what we set out to do.
And early on, we didn't want this to be like an office setting. We didn't want white floors and white walls and, where a kid would come in the door and go, I'm not going in there.
Right.
And it's color on the walls. I just crack up at the carpet because it came out of a movie theater. Somebody donated that.
Yeah, it was a Regal movie
Every time
theater.
I say something about it to when I'm giving a tour, they look down and they go, yeah, that is from a movie theater, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but it was just this place where you come in, and even today, kids come in for the first time and they look around and they're like, they don't feel threatened.
Nope.
It's wide open. It's inviting. And I think they realize we did this for them all along. They know we did it for them. We didn't do it for us.
Right.
We didn't do it for recognition or glory or anything like that. So the building has exemplified what we set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. This recording studio is really a nice statement about that. I think I've told this story before, but I didn't really get it. The youth kept saying, and staff kept saying, we want a recording studio. We want a recording studio. And we had all these musical instruments that were donated to the boutique. I thought they wanted it for recording music. And so we got the recording studio all built, and Justin Pendergrass said, okay, Michelle, we need someone to run the recording studio. And I was like, what? Wait, you mean there's somebody who has to run the recording studio? And so I was so thankful to find Isaac, but I really think that a lot of times when kids come over and they see the guitars hanging on the wall and they see Isaac here, he's a young man, and they experienced, last Friday we had a open mic night in the cafe, and there were 3 or 4 young people in there playing guitars and singing, and I have to be honest, I cry just about every day. I cry real easy, but I came around the corner and there was a young man playing the guitar and singing, and he sounded like Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. And I just stood there and cried. I was like, oh my gosh, how would we ever know that's inside him if we didn't provide opportunities for him to sit down and have Mick, one of our volunteers, who's, he's drumming with him, but he's just playing on the table. And everybody, there's a group of, 12 or 15 people that are just sitting around listening to him play and sing. And I think that's part of it, Jay. That's part of that vibe that we want to put a platform underneath them and see them accomplish and achieve. And we don't even know what that looks like, right?
We're recording this Friday, by the way, with that individual.
Oh, you are?
In here, yeah.
Cool.
We're doing multiple songs that we're recording. So I'm excited for how those are going to turn out.
Me too. And so I asked him yesterday in the cafe, and just on the way by, I said, hey, we should think about a name for, using the recording studio for your music, recording your music. We should think about a name for what to call that. And he goes, well, My Music, of course. And so I was like, okay. So I like that they have that feeling of ownership, that you're right, Jay. They know they belong here. We built this for them. Yeah. And I think one of the things that's the most fun for me over the long term is we just had a young lady come back. She was she spent several years in jail. She's been in jail for a little while, and she came back on a reentry visit with us, and back into our housing. She's just doing great. She's an amazing person. And she said, it's so fun to see everything that you're doing that you weren't doing when I was here before. It's really heartwarming.
Yeah. And to see her, I came in yesterday and she was out in the garden area outside and working hard, sweating. And then she came in today and gave me a list of like 30 things she needs for the garden. And I just thought, she's just been back here really just a few days. Yeah. And to see her already kind of blooming, outside of that life that she's known for the last few years, and to see her happy, and content and at peace, doing something that the rest of us probably wouldn't even enjoy doing. Right. I wouldn't enjoy weeding. That's not my thing. Right. But she that's her place right now, and that's so the thing that really amazes me is that every kid's different that walks in the door. And I remember in the early years, you and I and others, we would after we got done kind of sort of what we called initial intake, even though we didn't have paperwork and all that kind of stuff at the time, was like, if you could do anything in life, what would you do? And most of these kids would say, I've never been asked that, or I can't dream. I'm not allowed to dream. Right. And I would always just look at kids and go, who told you that? Mm-hmm. Who told you can't dream? And then they would take a while for some kids because they had honestly, genuinely never thought, if I could do anything in the world, what would I do? And then they begin to go, do you mean that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm asking you genuinely, what would you want to do if you could do anything in the world? And the answers were just overwhelming sometimes. And you were like, wow, I never picked that kid for that. Right. Right. So for us to be a small part of that, it's been cool.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That I really saw that shift when Northern Industrial Training came alongside. And all of a sudden we had welding and service oiler and construction. Then they had some ideas. It was idea generating. But you're right. It's hard when you got catcher's mitts on both hands and you're in fight or flight for years, particularly those in abusive situations, to be able to dream and think about what's next. And so I appreciate you mentioning that, because I think that that's such a powerful part of the program, and connecting them with mentors and people that can help them.
Yeah, and just all the different avenues that have opened up with partnerships for kids to go all over the state, and even some in the lower 48. We have kids that go work at
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone this summer, and at Denali and places like that. We just, in the early days, we didn't have those resources.
Right.
We didn't have those connections. So it's really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Well, as we wrap up, Jay, is there anything that you want to add or wrap up with, or?
No, just I think the hope. Everybody here is not here for any reason other than we believe in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we want to see, the goal. We say this and people laugh at us. The goal is to end homelessness.
Yeah.
It is.
That's right.
Whether it'll happen in my lifetime or not, I don't know. But the hope is that for me, it's getting harder and harder to find these kids. So that's telling me either A, we're doing what we need to do, or B, as a community, we've gotten better.
Yeah.
And as families and things like that, and schools and all these organizations, everybody doing their part, their piece of the puzzle, it's making a difference in our demographic anyway.
Yes.
So that's the hope that I have.
Yeah, our demographic and our community. Thank you for that. And I would agree with you. I think we're making progress on both of those. Thank you, Jay, for all the years that you've been with us and for all your hard work and being out there. That's not an easy job. Thanks for doing it. Thanks for being that guy.
My pleasure.
That's all the time we have for today, and I want to thank Jay for being here. The My House podcast is recorded at the My House studio in Wasilla, Alaska. Our producer and editor is the awesome Isaac Smolden. I'm Michelle Overstreet, and until next time.